It's all going to zero against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. Cover news, culture, and medic warfare. Will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Guys, sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. Welcome to the most watched daily Bitcoin live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X, Simply Bitcoin. Anyways, I said it. I overemphasized it in the beginning of the episode. The separation of money and state. And after all, that's what we want. We really believe in the theory from the book, The Sovereign Individual. And if you're a Bitcoiner, you should have definitely read that book by now. But it's just this theory that the introduction of information technologies and mass scale peer-to-peer communication, whether that's information or money, is really going to be the death of politics. And I believe in that theory over the long term. But what keeps me up at night, what has me worried, reason that we've created this show for you guys, is that there's going to be a transitionary period. And during that transitionary period, unfortunately, politics are a thing. We've taken a very neutral approach on Simply Bitcoin to be inclusive in our messaging, because a lot of people are polarized just because of the situation in many countries, right? And we believe that, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. So what we want is for as many people to take the orange pill as possible. However, it's getting to a point where Bitcoin is, jumping the chasm and it is becoming political. Bitcoin itself is apolitical, but what happens if the world adopts a Bitcoin standard is extremely political. So we're single issue voters on Simply Bitcoin. And what we do is we support any candidate, regardless of their ideology, if they support the orange coin. Now, here in the United States, realistically, it's going to be Biden versus Trump. Biden many times, and we'll make the case for you guys today, he's walking it back a little bit because it's hurting his poll numbers, but we'll get to that during the numbers segment. The reality is that Biden has a pro CBDC stance and an anti Bitcoin stance. Trump has an anti CBDC stance and a pro Bitcoin stance, not to mention the fact that he said at the Libertarian convention that he's going to release Ross Ulbricht. I don't think it's a coincidence that, the first president in U.S. history was convicted of a crime 2 weeks after he made those announcements. Even if you don't think that there's a direct linkage between the two, you kind of have to zoom out and understand. So on today's episode, we'll make the case for you guys, at least here in the US. And what I'll say is you really have to understand what our goal is at Simply Bitcoin. And what your goal should be as a Bitcoiner is fundamentally the separation of money and state. And we support anybody who is going to accelerate that process, because the reality is that they can make your life a living hell from a regulatory standpoint if you don't pay attention. Like, the attack on self-custody is real, right? Even though they're kind of walking it back a little bit, but the regulatory hostility in certain jurisdictions is real. That's why you've seen this mass exodus of Lightning companies leaving the United States, right? That's not a good thing, right? As a Bitcoin entrepreneur, as someone who's trying to build a business in the industry, you don't want that, right? So, of course, there's freedom country, there's Bitcoin country, El Salvador, but if you like the US or Europe, really, this is happening everywhere. It's happening in Canada too, with Trudeau and, his political opponent, which is pro-Bitcoin. The uncomfortable pill that Bitcoiners have to swallow is you might not care about politics, but they sure as hell do care about you, right? So, we are going to support, and we've already endorsed any candidate who is pro Bitcoin, regardless of their ideology, because it's just going to make our lives easier. It's going to lead us ever so closer to our goal of the separation of money and state. I mean, freeing Ross, like, that's a big effing deal, everybody. So you have to understand what we're up against. We have to understand the establishment, the uniparty in Washington, D.C., why the uniparty is so strong. Hint, hint, the Federal Reserve. Hint, hint, the money printer. We're against a Leviathan. That's really what's happening right now. And that Leviathan is fighting back. And that's why you saw, the first time in American history, an ex-U.S. president who's currently, going to be in the election in November, get convicted of a crime. So if you stand on a certain ideological level where you see Trump as a divisive figure and you dislike him, I understand. But frankly, I don't care, because one guy is anti-Bitcoin, pro CBDC, and the other guy is pro Bitcoin, anti CBDC. And I'm only looking at this from the separation of money and state perspective. I think everything else is divide and conquer, fiat politic garbage. So Bitcoiners are going to inherit the earth. I think we're going to be some of the most powerful, influential people in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And with power and influence and wealth, you are going to see Bitcoiners in positions of influence. That's the reality. It's like, do you want to be ruled by a tyrannical government? Who do you want to control the men with guns, right? Do you want a pro-Bitcoin government like El Salvador, or do you want an anti-Bitcoin government? Is that the country you want to live in, right? Or you can be okay with moving and adopting that digital nomad lifestyle. That's okay too, right? But if you don't want to do that, if you want to hold the line, unfortunately, we are at this point in the movie where, yes, things are getting political, and unfortunately, we have to talk about it. Just the way it is. It's just simply Bitcoin, and this is the separation of money and state after all. And this is just one part of the milestone. I mean, did you really think that Bitcoin was going to become the world reserve currency without this eventually happening? I anticipated this happening in 2028. I didn't think this was going to happen now, but things are obviously happening way, way, way sooner. So anyways, I do want to bring up my legendary co-host, always optimistic. How you doing, Opti?
I'm doing great, man. Life's absolutely wonderful. We're alive. We get to wake up to another beautiful day in paradise. We get to talk on Simply Bitcoin. Oh, sorry guys. I guess my mic, man, restream's really wrecking me. Anyways, man, at this point in the movie, Nico, I am just falling into the cliche, man's thinking about the Roman Empire. So I'll probably reference that one more time before the show's over. But yeah, man, crazy times. Absolutely love it. It's so good being a Bitcoiner. We just get to watch from the sideline. It's like watching a football match or like the Gladiators fight, and you're just sitting in the sidelines eating popcorn. Like, man, oh, look at that one go. Look at that. Look at that punch. This is great. Anyways, you did bring up about being a digital nomad, so I want to bring in our guest today. Shouts out to Eben, aka Captain Sid, Bitcoiner, creator of Rite of Passage, and I think this is going to be a great show. But before we move on, Evan, first of all, how you doing today? And then can you give the people out there a TLDR of what Rite of Passage is?
Good. I'm doing great because I got to ride my motorcycle today, and a Rite of Passage has to do with motorcycles. The Rite of Passage is an adventure I designed last year, and now I'm trying it out in different formats and doing it in different ways. But basically the idea is to bring Bitcoiners together to bond with each other and to go through adventures that help them grow personally. And so I did that once last year through a motorcycle trip in Thailand. And now we're doing more motorcycle trips, one in the US, one in Thailand, and then another one that's more like half business, half personal, half adventure in Thailand that I call a mastermind. So yeah, that's Rite of Passage.
Love it, bro. Awesome, dude. Well, man, I can't wait to hear more about that during the culture. And it's going to be a spicy episode. Ladies and gentlemen, also, I didn't really optimize the title for views today, just because, it was
Wait, are we taking the gloves off today, Nico?
We're taking the gloves off, brother. I didn't optimize the title for views just because I felt like I needed to cover this just because of the historical precedent where we are in the movie and what you guys could do as individuals in terms of taking agency and action. So, guys, we really appreciate it if you guys could smash the like button. It really, really helps with the algos if you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on Rumble, or if you're watching us on X. We are definitely going to shatter or slightly move the Overton window in today's episode. So, guys, buckle up. Here's a live view of just that. All right, everybody. Before
we had a little Nico there.
Before we start the show, I do want to give a extremely special shout out to our lead sponsor, Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. It is self-custody by default. Future-proof your money with Bitcoin Well. What does self-custody by default mean? It means that you can't buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well unless you're going to take self-custody. As soon as the funds clear, literally your Bitcoin will automatically withdraw from the exchange to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. And this perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos because self-custody is the revolution, right? The more people take self-custody, the more we effectuate, right? So support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps like bitcoinwell.com, the first one in the United States. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada and the USA. All you got to do to get started, you put in your email, there's a clear 1% spread. It's obviously Bitcoin only. It's non-custodial, empowering sovereign ownership with free automatic self-custody. Also, check out their cash vouchers. And if you are a Bitcoin Well customer in Canada, buy up to $3,000 per day. Only an email address is required. And of course, their new product, which just released, instantly sell using the Lightning Network. That's right. You literally send Bitcoin via Lightning to a wallet address, and it will automatically deposit into your bank account extremely quickly. So if you're a Canadian customer of Bitcoin Well, that product has gone live. Guys, support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps that enable independence. Go to bitcoinwell.com today to get started. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. All right, everybody, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You could scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you directly to the Stampseed website where you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $66,970. Sats per dollar is 1,493. Block height, 845,933. Blocks to halving, 204,067. Halving estimate, March 22nd, 2028. Total Lightning Network capacity, 4,655 Bitcoin. Capacity value, 312 million US dollars. Realized monetary inflation, 1.63%. The market capitalization of Bitcoin is currently sitting pretty at 1.32 trillion US dollars. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 8.17%. In the grand scheme of things, we are just getting started, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I'm going to start off with this quote. Things are going to get spicy, and we're going to move the F out of the Overton window. We usually don't talk about these things because we try to be inclusive in our messaging. However, I want everyone to understand that this year, specifically in the United States, the regulatory environment is on the ballot. You know, Bitcoin's on the ballot. Ross Ulbricht's freedom is on the ballot. Central bank digital currencies is on the ballot. And because of those reasons, and only because of those reasons, are we going to be talking about these certain topics? Because all the other policies and, you know, political bullshit, like, we're not interested in it. We are single issue voters here at Simply Bitcoin, and our main, literally our cause, our purpose is the separation of money and state and empowering individuals by, you know, advocating for self-custody and hoping that those individuals use the tool that is Bitcoin to empower themselves to become sovereign individuals. But I do want to read this quote from Plato. It says, "If you do not take an interest in the affairs of your government, then you're doomed to live under the rules of fools." Now, moving on to my observation from yesterday's event. It's not a coincidence that the first U.S. president that publicly supported the right to self-custody Bitcoin and promised to free Ross was just convicted of a crime. Now I got to move on to some other things. Moving that Overton window. President Trump was the first U.S. president to be convicted in history. First president in U.S. history to not enter a war or leave office wealthier than he arrived. It's interesting. A quote that we always use at Simply Bitcoin. You know, you saw the legacy media attack El Salvador when they adopted a Bitcoin standard, right? And we've always say that the flak is heaviest over the target, right? Here's Cernovich. He's a popular kind of, right-wing commentator. And he called us cucks, essentially. He said, the crypto cucks are silent. Pussies talk tough about taking on the monetary system, but don't want to be seen as pro-Trump. Truly a revealing moment and proof that they don't have the will to stop what Biden will do to crypto if he wins in November. Here is Nolan. Love Nolan, host of the Wake Up Call. What's it called, Opti? The
Breakup.
The Breakup. Thank you. Host of the Breakup. Huge fan of the show. Nolan drops the hot fire.
And he went in this morning.
Yeah, I bet he did. Like, we're going to go in this today. Bitcoiners speak up every morning, 8 a.m. This is what the fiat apocalypse looks like. We are optimistic about the future and we'll make whether America survives or not. And that's a really good point, right? Bitcoin gives you the power to vote with not only your wallet, but also your feet. But at the same time, you know, if you want to stay where you live, and I know that the majority of our audience is based in the US, and the ones that are based in Canada and Europe, guys, this applies to you. You will have these types of battles in your home, right? You have Trudeau against Poilievre. I don't know how to pronounce his last name correctly. Europe is just hostile in general because they've, love their central bank digital currencies. But this is coming to you. And this is what I want you guys to understand, right? It is Bitcoin or slavery. It is Bitcoin or central bank digital currencies, period. And make no mistake, and we'll get that to the news section. We'll get to that during the news segment. There is literally, at most countries on planet Earth are currently in the process of developing central bank digital currencies. Why? Because governments want to retain the power of being able to create money for free that everyone has to work for. They want that special privilege. Why do you think the Washington, D.C. suburbs are some of the wealthiest in the world? Why do you think that's the case? Like, Washington, D.C. doesn't produce anything. It's not Los Angeles. It's not New York. Like, Los Angeles, entertainment capital of the world. New York, financial capital of the world. Miami's got its own, things. Texas, energy capital, that's that entire state, right? What the F does Washington, D.C. do? It's nothing. It's their proximity to the money printer. That's why all the lobbyists get ridiculously wealthy. That's why these politicians are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But I'm going to go back to that original comment. First president in U.S. history to not enter a war, leave office, wealthier than he arrived. And also, he promised to free Ross Ulbricht, and he promised the right for Bitcoiners to take self-custody. He promised to protect Bitcoiners taking self-custody. Like, I mean, come on, bro. Anyways, moving on. Here's Alex Gladstein. U.S. legislation has been drafted to classify not reusing Bitcoin addresses as mixing. There's also efforts to force unhosted wallet providers to collect user info for taxes. Did we call that or did we not call that? Yes, that means if you're using Sparrow, if you're using Electrum, they're literally trying to pass laws right now that would force KYC onto those wallets, which would defeat the entire purpose, because all of a sudden, you know, depending on where you happen to be born in, you're not allowed to use a Bitcoin wallet. No, you can't do that. They're forcing the existing system onto Bitcoin because they want that privilege of being able to create money for free. Here is Ryan Selkis, and him and David Bailey, CEO of Bitcoin Magazine, have been doing, in my opinion, the most in terms of the political lobbying and stuff in behalf of the respected industries of the crypto industry, and David Bailey on behalf of the Bitcoin industry. And that's why Trump named Bitcoin by name during his speech during the Libertarian Conference. So here's what Ryan says. I got into crypto and I have worked tirelessly and fervently for this industry because I believe it protects and extends American constitutional values: free speech, self-defense from a corrupt state, private property, due process, decentralization, and peaceful revolution. Now here's David Bailey, mentioning some things that have happened to Trump. And again, moving the Overton window slightly a little bit more. Media smeared him, FBI spied on him, Russiagate witch hunt, special mail-in election, impeachment twice, censored from all social media, home raided, assets seized, politically prosecuted in 4 phony trials, and still going to be reelected president. Now, censored from social media. Sounds interesting. Now, let me go back to this, right? So first U.S. president to leave office in modern history and not be wealthier than he arrived. He didn't enter a war. He got censored on social media. I mean, sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's almost as if, the establishment, the same establishment that is funded by the fiat money printer, it's almost as if they see him as a clear and present danger. And by the way, this isn't just Trump. This is RFK Jr. You're seeing the rise of populism. It's not really just on one ideological side. It's happening on both sides. That's what RFK is doing. And, that's what Trump is doing as well. And by the way, look at the Overton window shifting. Take a look at this. Fiat enabled all wars in the past century. Bitcoin lets us live up to our promises, says RFK Jr. So for anyone who just can't stand Trump and detests Trump, yeah, you got RFK Jr. too. Just understand that if you vote for Biden in November, you're voting for a pro-central bank digital currency candidate and an anti-Bitcoin candidate. Now, what's really interesting, and I'll leave it with this last bit with David Bailey, and this is the reality, and everyone has to understand this. The reality is that America was captured a long time ago, decades ago. The justice system is broken, the political system is broken, the medical system is broken, the culture is broken, and the money is broken. Our only hope for revival is Bitcoin. It's all that matters. And that's what I want people to internalize and for people to understand, because I get that you might feel a certain way about certain political candidates and you might detest them. But what I got to say is you're brainwashed by the media. That's what I got to say. You're not understanding you're not grasping the bigger picture. This is why we start Simply Bitcoin all the time. Our goal is the separation of money and state. You want to be able to afford a home as a millennial or a Zoomer. Bitcoin fixes this. Not politicians, not Trump, not RFK Jr., not Biden. Bitcoin fixes this. But it can only fix it. It's going to fix it regardless. But if you want to be able to live a good life in your jurisdiction and you don't want to be persecuted, you don't want to be put in a box like the Samurai Wallet developers, like the Tornado Cash developers, like Ross Ulbricht, right? You're seeing the laws that they're trying to pass. So I'm making the case for you guys. They are literally trying to pass a law that if you don't use a wallet that collects KYC information, they're going to put you in a box. Meanwhile, they're spending trillions of dollars more than they collect in tax revenue. They're sending billions to fund another foreign fucking war with the most heavily armed country on the face of the planet, has the most nukes in the world, right? Let's just keep funding these goddamn politicians. Let's keep doing that, right? No. But we have to make sure we know where every single dollar is going. But us? Nah, just, sorry, guys. Like, the Pentagon lost a couple billion in accounting. Oops, can't explain it. Where's the gold at Fort Knox? Where's that? Haven't seen that in the 70s. El Salvador is the problem, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, they're an issue to the United States. It's only a $32 billion economy. And, they just made their Bitcoin reserves completely public, but somehow they're a threat to democracy because that's what they've been saying, right? No, it's not a threat to democracy. It's a threat to the status quo. That's what is happening. That's what you have to understand. And people like RFK, people like Trump are trying to take on that system in the traditional world, in the traditional sense, in the traditional fiat system. So it kind of creates a situation where the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Now, the Biden administration, and I think Elizabeth Warren and co. have realized that, oh crap, we took a step too far. This isn't popular with our voter base. That's why the Ethereum ETF got approved. And this is why you hear news like this. Biden campaign ramps up crypto industry outreach in surprising tone shift. That is utter bullshit. And I'll tell you why it's bullshit. We're going to move the Overton window even more. All right. And we don't talk about this ever, but I'm going to talk about it. You can't be a pro Bitcoin and pro CBDC politician. Any other politician that says otherwise is a complete and utter fraud. You can't have that. You can't be pro CBDC and you can't be pro Bitcoin. That doesn't exist. It literally contradicts each other. The reason that they're changing tune is because, holy shit, this is unpopular with a portion of their demographic voter base. Now, let's take a look at the data, right? This, put the emotions aside. Let's take a look at, don't trust, verify. Let's take a look at this because this is what actually happened. There was a bill that was passed that would ban the Federal Reserve from issuing a central bank digital currency. 213 Republicans, meaning basically the entire party, voted for the bill. 3 Democrats voted for the bill. 192 Democrats voted against the bill. So when you see this, this is pandering. That's the reality. When you see this, it tells you exactly what's going on. Now we're going to move the Overton window slightly more. And we're going to talk about some things. So what are the consequences of these anti-Bitcoin policies, the regulatory hostility? By the way, Caitlin Long, the CEO and founder of Custodia Bank, the US's first quote unquote crypto bank that is fully reserved, got denied a federal banking charter. She came on Simply Bitcoin IRL and she told me that order came directly from the White House. So you have Bitcoin privacy developers jailed. You have the first US president to support Bitcoin that has a chance at winning jailed. You have a proposed 30% Bitcoin mining tax. You have Lightning companies pulling out of the US en masse. Now, you have to ask yourself, and we're going to move the Overton window slightly more once again. Why are they pro CBDC? I'll break it down. Fifth tenet of the Communist Manifesto. Opti, I'm going there. no central bank, no wealth redistribution via inflation, no equality. Simple as that. You can't have equality without taking other people's money and giving it to someone else. You can't have that. You need effective wealth redistribution mechanisms. That's the only way it happens. You can't do that without effective coercive means. Can't do it. So, in my opinion, right, they're going to have to reinvent themselves. They're going to have to reinvent how they look at this. Because I do fundamentally believe with a lot of Bitcoiners that are coming at it from the progressive stance, because I do believe that Bitcoin gives anyone around the world the ability to use money and the ability to transact with everyone freely. It gives them the opportunity, specifically the lower and middle classes, the ability to protect themselves from the ravages of inflation, because inflation affects the lower and middle classes the most. But the central planning part of that, it is incompatible with Bitcoin. The redistribution of that is incompatible with Bitcoin. Not from an income tax standpoint. That's a whole other discussion, which I don't want to get into. But you have to understand that the wealth redistribution for equality comes from two places. Direct income tax, which doesn't pay for the entirety of the bill, and wealth redistribution via money printing. The US spent 1.7 trillion more than it collected in tax revenue last year. When you hear politicians offering free college, offering all this free shit, where do you think it's coming from? It's not free, dude. This is what you have to understand. Is people are just not aware to the hidden tax of inflation, but it exists. It's like they're taking $100 out of your back pocket and giving you $5 in return. And you're like, oh, this is cool. The numbers stay the same. It still says $100, but it's lost $5 or $20 of purchasing power. And then they're giving you cents back and saying, oh, it's free college. Right? So anyways, moving on. And I can't emphasize this enough. There's opportunity here for both sides, both ideological sides. But the establishment, the uniparty of Washington, D.C., the party, and on the conservative side too, the neocons that believe in the endless wars. And you can't have endless wars without a money printer, bro. That needs to change. And it needs to change on all sides. And that's what RFK and that's what Donald Trump represent. And that's exactly why the legacy media has targeted them. That's exactly why, and part of the reason that they literally convicted this guy. That's literally the reason that Ross Ulbricht went to prison. This is literally the reason that Edward Snowden can't come back to the US. This is literally the effing reason that Julian Assange is still in a fucking box. This is what we're up against. We're up against the Leviathan of the administrative state, the unelected bureaucracy that remains in power regardless of who gets elected, that is fueled by the government's monopoly, its ability to create money for free that the rest of us have to work for. And this just has disproportionately hurt the millennials, the Zoomers, that have completely lost an ability to be able to purchase their first home. It has completely stolen their time, their energy, and it has fueled this churn house of war, death, and destruction. And on the ballot in November, it's an opportunity to end that, to make a change. You have RFK or you have Trump. Realistically, it's really going to be Biden versus Trump. If Trump wins or if RFK wins, we have a pro-Bitcoin president in the White House, giving Bitcoin time to shine, giving Bitcoin entrepreneurs the ability to, innovate in the United States. Or you have someone who will attack the industry, try to introduce a central bank digital currency, which we'll get to during the news, and you'll have your kids living in a slavery system. That's literally the choices at hand. And that's what people have to fundamentally understand. And guys, this is not about fucking politics. I can care less about all the other fucking issues, because all the other issues are not only divide and conquer, but they're symptoms of broken money. That's, that's really what it boils down to. Stacey Herbert has this quote that she always references. I forget what the exact quote is and who that person was, but basically it goes along the lines of, if the leaders of the country are stealing, they'll make laws in order to protect that. And make no mistake, the swamp of Washington, D.C. is stealing the lifeblood out of everybody. Remember why Bitcoin was invented. Remember why Bitcoin was discovered. 2008, Genesis block, Chancellor on the brink of the second bailout for banks. Satoshi knew that they were just going to continue printing money, therefore debasing people's purchasing power. And remember that no effing banker went to jail for what happened in 2008, 2009. Julian Assange went to jail. Ross Ulbricht went to jail. Bitcoin privacy developers went to jail. They want to pass a law that if you don't use a KYC Bitcoin wallet, you're going to go to jail. The first president in U.S. history that has a chance at winning the election to support Bitcoin and free Ross, convicted of a crime, potentially going to jail. I hope you guys understand. I hope you guys get the picture. And I hope you guys have the consciousness and the ability to look past the partisan bullshit and understand the clear and present danger and understand the Leviathan of which we are up against. Because they're not just going to go gently into that good night. They're not just going to give up. It's such a tremendous amount of power. Power is intoxicating. So I hope you guys have the maturity and the ability to understand what's at stake, to understand what's going on. We're Bitcoiners. We take self-custody. We can always move to El Salvador, right? But if you want to stay in Europe or in the United States or in Canada, there gets to a point where you have to stand up and you have to fight metaphorically for what is right, even though it might not be popular. And Opti will be the first one to tell you. I mean, when he brought up Trump derangement syndrome, I went off on him because I was like, dude, like, you can't say that. I want to be inclusive on the show. But when the first time in American history they convict the opponent of the politician, yeah, you got to say some shit, bro. You got to say something. You got to say something. And this is serious. This is a big deal. So again, I'm going to say it. Simply Bitcoin endorses Donald Trump for president in 2024, and Simply Bitcoin endorses RFK Jr. in 2024. And we are vehemently against the Biden administration, and we do not wish them to win re-election because they're fundamentally anti-freedom. And I can literally just tell you that because they voted for a central bank digital currency, which we'll get into more in detail during the news segment. So anyways, that's my bit on that. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
All right. Well, first and foremost, Nico Jones is so back. We're so back. All right, bet. This is great. Okay. Going all the way back because that was a great long monologue, and people are like, "When's this monologue gonna end?" It's like these are the things that need to be said. First and foremost, there's a point there where you said we predicted this, and I love when Bitcoin is the basis of your worldview. It's the best filter for predicting the future. And once you understand the Bitcoin fundamentals, you can, I wouldn't say you can see everything coming at you, but you can start to parse the information and start to predict the future, which is probably one of the best things about being a Bitcoiner. And me and Evan and Nico before the show, we were talking, and we kind of talked about this for a little bit, and we all kind of agreed, like, look, it's simple. Who's going to steal less money from me? And that's who I like. And if one side's fighting Bitcoiners and the other side is starting to come out for Bitcoiners, it's like, it seems pretty simple to me. But the bottom line remains the same. Fake money or broken money or whatever you want to call it, that's the reason why we're here. And this is why we're seeing all of this crazy stuff that's happening in the first place. But look, with that being said, I'll have to do a PSA context here. Like, I'm not thoroughly informed on the details of this, so take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt. I get my news from Twitter, so you know how it goes. But it does seem, with what we saw yesterday, that it's becoming very clear. And again, going back to what I was saying about predictions, that a lot of people are seeing what us Bitcoiners have seen for a long time. And it's just the pure illegitimacy of the institutions. And now people that have been holding out and holding hope and like, oh no, like there's still, a rule of law and just like work through the institutions and justice will prevail. Whether you are on the opposite view is a totally other conversation. But I think it's becoming very clear to most people that they have completely lost faith in the justice systems, in the financial systems, in the information systems, as we've been predicting for a long time. And I think yesterday is a big example for a lot of people that the system is completely rigged and unfair against those that don't have popular opinions. And imagine us average everyday people. Like, if this is the case with an ex-president, there is no hope for any single one of us. Like, if you litter on the street, it's like off to the gulags. We talk about that all the time, that like the gulags are going to be super lit because we're all going to be there. It's going to be the best place to be. But it's becoming very clear that if you weaponize the law, at a certain point, you will be on the opposite side of the metaphorical gun, since we are on YouTube here. But I think yesterday, at least for people on the right, as Bitcoiners, we've known this for a very long time, is that the powers that be have damaged their reputation and have exposed their own hypocrisy and exposed their misinformation, or as we were talking about yesterday, the pre-bunking of information. Now, I think a lot of people are waking up to what Bitcoiners have known for a long time, is that everything is fake. Everything you hear from coming out from the institutions, every word coming out from a politician's mouth is completely fake. And, whether you like Trump or not, I think it's very important to remember a fundamental axiom that I think a lot of us notice. And Nico, you kind of brought it up, like you get the most flack when you're over the target. And it's the idea that when the system attacks someone, it's usually a good signal that maybe they are doing something that the system doesn't like. And in this moment of today, trying to clear through all of the noise, it's becoming very clear who may potentially be an enemy to the system and all of the craziness we are seeing here. And I think this just goes back to what we've been saying. This is an information war. We are all frontline soldiers. And I think this highlights, at least for a lot of people, just how much of a sham the institutions are. And when the system attacks someone, it should be a shining light of, okay, maybe I need to reflect and, maybe I don't agree with everything someone's saying. But if the whole brunt of the force of the system's attacking him, then maybe there's something that I need to look into and try to avoid, falling into like just pure, I don't like this guy. And so I'm glad that he got convicted, or like he deserves this type of stuff. Because again, always go back to, if I was in a position, obviously I think of myself a good person, but you never know. At this point, it's becoming like the laws are being made in real time to just attack freedom-loving people, attack anyone that the powers that be don't like. And personally, I don't even like Trump that much. Like, I just find him kind of hilarious. He's a very good speaker. I don't even like him that much.
Dude, I don't even think, bro, it has
I know.
nothing to do with Trump.
But that's what I'm
I see people in
saying.
chat- I see people in the chat, and even people with like Bitcoin handles in their name and stuff. Like I'm voting for Biden. It's like, okay, dude, you realize that you're voting for someone who is anti-Bitcoin and pro central bank digital currencies. Like that's where like your priorities are like not, you're not thinking about this clearly. Because if we want the separation of money and state, the exact opposite of the separation of money and state is a fucking central bank digital currency. If there's a regulatory environment where Bitcoin is allowed to do its thing, like it's allowed to cook, over time, it's going to even defeat the dollar, right? But if you create a regulatory environment where literally lightning companies are fleeing, developers are getting arrested, they're going to try to KYC wallets. Like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you thinking? You're so ideologically brainwashed that you can't see past the bigger picture and understand that it's like, it's not about the orange man. It's not about the policy, all the other policies. We haven't mentioned them once on this show. It's literally the fact that Bitcoin is on the ballot and Ross Ulbricht's freedom is on the ballot. And there's two guys that will do that. And then there's one guy that will do the exact opposite. So if you're a fiat maxi, vote for Biden. If you're Bitcoin maxi, vote for RFK or vote for Trump. Like, it's as simple as that. And if you can't get past like your like the ideological stuff, like, dude, like, then like your head's not in the game. Like you're not thinking clearly. Like, you're thinking straight up about like the divide and conquer bullshit and all the talking points that they use in the media, which we have never used on this show. We've tried not to use on this show. We've literally just been focused on what is the goal. The goal is separation of money and state, because that will make politics irrelevant over the long run, of which we all hate that stuff. And that will make that will empower you, that will empower you to become a sovereign individual, and that will protect you from monetary debasement, right? So like, you know, like it's one step in that right direction. It's one step in that direction. You have one step in that direction, or you have a step in another direction. And then it's like, you know, 2 years from now, you're like, oh, wow, like they just KYC'd the wallets. It's like, dude, like that's what's on the, like, we're telling you, like, that's what's on the ballot. Right. So it's like, I'm going to leave it to you guys. Like, you know, I've tried to make the case, and it's really up to you guys to take into, you know, agency and action. But, you know, like, don't be surprised if shit gets worse. If, you know, if the country goes a certain direction. Anyways, I want to get Evan's point. We are going fucking long up to, we're at 47 minutes.
We're going to go long today. It's Friday
All
show,
right.
whatever. The last thing that I want to say is, like, the acceleration, I think, just went into overdrive yesterday, and we're seeing a hard fork of reality. And as Bitcoiners, we all kind of study history at certain points. And again, you know, the classic thinking of the Roman Empire meme. This has happened before, and it happened at the fall of the Roman Empire, where, you know, one side was attacking the other political side, and it's like it's just repeating itself. Cycles don't rhyme, or what's it? They don't repeat, but they rhyme. We're seeing this play out over and over and over again until we finally get the money out of their hands, until we finally start to defund their power and get back to a hard money standard. All right, Evan, go. I think you're muted.
Good save.
There you go.
Yeah. So I got some thoughts on this. I left the country 4 years ago. I'm originally American. I grew up outside Chicago, but that gave me some distance and perspective on American politics, living abroad and not really talking to many Americans. There's a huge incentive for both sides to keep us fighting and to create a division over ideological lines that both sides will never budge on. So they're always fighting. And that means that we are yelling at each other about all these issues that will never get resolved, will never convince the other side. But they can continue to fleece us because we're so busy with those issues that we never pay attention to the real issues, being the money printer, the main one. But more importantly, I think what I've noticed about that, talking to Americans since I left, is that it keeps us distracted. It drains our energy. It drains our agency. And it diminishes our ability to make our lives better, to work on ourselves and our families and our communities, on the broader society. It literally diminishes the ability of every American to make their surroundings better, which really, you can vote for someone that's in DC, but most of you are never going to go to DC. You're never going to be affected by most of those policies. What matters is what you are doing at home right there with the people around you. That's where you can have a real impact. And creating this fake fight means your energy is drained. I saw this with people that I lived with in New York City before I left the US, the anti-Trump mania that people will shut down because they're so angry about this situation that really doesn't affect their daily life at all. But they then didn't have any agency to do anything about their lives. It drained them. And I think this is an extremely important point, because to build sovereignty in all the other places that matter in your life is extremely important. And I'm going to say something controversial here for a Bitcoin show, but if you're working a 9 to 5, you're shopping at the grocery store, and you think stacking sats is going to save you, you are absolutely fucked. You are done, because you have no idea how to generate income without an employer. You have no idea how to get food that isn't within an agro-industrial system that provides to you through the grocery store. You have no idea how to be independent, separate from all these centralized systems. So as soon as they ask you to bend the knee, like with COVID, you have very few tools except your stack. And guess what? Now they know about Bitcoin. Now they know about the power of this to tear down their system. So they're going to go for your Bitcoin first. The next time there's a big tragedy like this, a big uproar, something like the pandemic, they're going to come for your Bitcoin and they're going to make you trade it for freedom. So if you're not ready, if you don't have that energy that they're sucking out of you through this political back and forth and bullshit, if you don't have that energy and you're not building this sovereign mindset, this sovereign communities, you're done. That's really what I believe. You're done.
No, and I agree with you. I agree with you. But I would also got to say is that they can really make your life a living hell. I've seen it.
I agree with that too.
Just like imagine the app stores. All of a sudden you can't download a Bitcoin wallet unless it's KYC. They start going after the open source wallet developers, which they already started with Bitcoin privacy developers, right? They start to put it like a metaphorical gun to their head and saying, hey, you can't develop this unless it's a KYC wallet, because now all of a sudden you're enabling money laundering. Like that's literally where it's going, right? Yeah. And this is why it's so important. I see someone in the chat saying, dude, really, Trump committed actual crimes and is now being held accountable, has absolutely nothing to do with Bitcoin. Okay, I have a video for you, bro, and you let me know what you think.
That the future of crypto and the future of Bitcoin will be made in the USA, not driven overseas. I will support the right to self-custody. To the nation's 50 million crypto holders, I say this with your vote: I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin. And I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency.
All right, so you said that, right? So you said that. Let me pull up that thing again, right? Because again, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, brother. And I'm gonna share this screen. I can't be clear enough for this, because you made the claim that I'm being incoherent and my logic making sense. Here's the entire Democratic Party voting for a central bank digital currency. All right, bro. So I'll leave you with those facts, and you can do whatever you want. I'm just here to just lay out the case. Anyways, I do want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor. And of course, I'm talking about the pleb party that is going to be happening in Nashville, Tennessee. There's going to be 1,000 Bitcoin plebs that are expected to attend. It's going to be July 25th, the day before the Bitcoin 2024 conference. Confirmed attendees include Larry Lepard, Preston Pish, the entire Simply Bitcoin crew, James Lavish, Robert Breedlove, Mark Moss, Pubby, Tatum Turnip, and Adam O'Brien. It's an amazing venue, a rustic automobile factory from 1910 with brick walls and tons of proof of work atmosphere. You definitely don't want to miss it. The tickets sold out 8 days before the previous event, before the event started. So you want to get your tickets quickly. The prices do go up as well. So scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. You definitely don't want to miss the pleb party at Bitcoin Nashville the day before the largest Bitcoin conference on planet Earth. Get your tickets quickly. All right, everybody, let's hit the news. Here we go.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, big concept of this show is Bitcoin or slavery, Bitcoin versus central bank digital currencies. And my question for all of you all is, what future do you want to live in? Very simple question. Do you want to live in a future of endless wars, nihilism, poverty, destruction, despair, degradation? Or do you want to live in a future of optimism, hope, peace, prosperity, opportunity? And that is a future of Bitcoin, a future of hope, right? What future do you want to live in? And when I say Bitcoin or slavery, it's really Bitcoin versus central bank digital currencies, right? So when you have an entire party voting for slavery money, central bank digital currency money, that should be brought to attention. And today I want to talk about what the dangers of a central bank digital currency are, right? But first, I want you guys to understand the grave situation that this is. Like, I want you guys to understand that this isn't going away. And just because you're not aware of it, because we don't talk about it every day, because frankly, it doesn't get a lot of views, like today's episode, not structured to get views whatsoever. It's just really important to talk about this stuff. Look at the world map. For our audio listeners, here's a world map. The entire world, literally, mostly every single country is developing one currently. So in the United States, it's in development. In Canada, it's in development. In Mexico, it's in development. In Brazil, it's it's already in pilot mode. In Argentina, it's in research. In Ecuador, it was canceled. That's great. In Algeria, it's in research. In Zambia, inactive. In South Africa, it's a pilot. In Nigeria, launched already. Been an absolute clusterfuck because it doesn't fix the fundamental problem as to why people are using alternative currencies in the first place, and that's because they're sick and tired of inflation. In Europe, it's in what mode is this? It's in pilot mode. In Russia, it's in pilot mode. In China, it's pilot, and we'll talk about we'll talk about how that's doing in China. In North Korea, it's inactive. I didn't even know they even had money in North Korea. Anyways, so let's talk about what a central bank digital currency system will enable. And I love this graphic because it just kind of highlights, what a social credit system is. So essentially, and we'll start from the bottom, right? If you have a 600, me and Opti would start at the lowest here, right?
Rock bottom confirmed.
This is how the government would control you. Right. So what happens if you have a low credit system, low social credit score, denial of licenses, permits, and access to some social services, exclusion from booking flights or high-speed train tickets, less access to credit, restricted access to public services, ineligibility for government jobs, no access to private school, public shaming, exposure either online or TV screens, in public spaces of the names, photos, ID numbers of blacklisted citizens, phone dial tones mandated by authorities that inform people that they are calling a dishonest debtor. I mean, bro. So how do you recover this? Well, you commit a heroic act. having a good financial credit history, helping the poor. Okay, it doesn't sound bad. You're like, Nico, what are you talking about? Praising the government on social media. Could you imagine what we just went through during the pandemic? They would hurt you because on the opposite of praising the government on social media, it says posing anti-government message on social media. And then you say, Nico, you're a conspiracy theorist. This would never happen in the West. Do you remember the truckers' protests? Do you remember how they shut down the bank accounts of people protesting the government closures? Do you guys remember that? Now, like, imagine with the CBDC, they wouldn't even have to call the bank and tell the bank, hey, close this guy's account. They would just do and shut it off themselves. Next one, spreading rumors on the internet. You know what a rumor would be? Remember when Janet Yellen said there's going to be no inflation and how Bitcoin Twitter was like, hey, there's going to be inflation because there's a record amount of money printing. And they're like, that's misinformation. So who determines what a rumor is or not? Right? It's, of course, the politicians are going to pick and choose what's convenient to them. Insincere apologies for committing crimes. So struggle sessions, essentially. Participating in anything deemed to be a cult. So we're all fucked as Bitcoiners there. And then the lowest credit score, social credit score is 600. And then cheating in online games. So what are the other things? Engaging in charity work, taking care of elderly family members, not visiting aging parents, illegally protesting against authorities. Again, like what if it's, what type of, what about what are we protesting? Right? That's a really good, question. Right? And then what do the high scores lead to? Tax breaks, jumping the queue for public housing, fast track promotion at work, shorter wait times, cheaper public transport, free gym facilities, easier access to cash loans and consumer credit. So do you guys understand how this is a total slavery system and how this would literally incentivize society to be absolute government cucks because you get all these benefits, and if you kind of break the party line, you're literally shamed in public. You you lose access to travel, right? Like they put a dunce cap on your head. Like this is what I mean by slavery. I don't mean actual like chains and slavery. Like that is like the previous version of slavery. I'm talking about digital dystopia. You'll own nothing and be happy. 10-minute cities. You've had your one steak for the month. You can't have any more steaks for the rest of the year. That is what I mean by digital slavery. And central bank digital currencies are going to enable that. And Bitcoin is going to starve that completely so that no central planner, no politician could ever have that ability, that power over people's lives again. And that's why we're so vehemently against central bank digital currencies. And that's why we're so pro Bitcoin, because it takes away power from the state. It gives it back to the individual, and therefore it changes the balance of power, right? The balance of the power is like off, very fucking screwed right now because they have a monopoly on violence and they have the ability to create money out of thin air, right? So anyways, that's my take. Opti, what's your take on this?
Mine's going to be very short. After hearing that list, oh man, I'm giddy right now. This is the best episode ever. After hearing that list, I'm like, literally, it was like a checklist. Like, yep, got that one. Yep, got that one. Yep, got that one. Like, yeah, hell yeah, I got that one too. And like I put in the chat, basically, I'm sorry guys, if you're listening to this, you'd be at the bottom gulag with us. So if you're here today, you're already on the list. And yeah, it's literally and also not to steal what Evan was going to say, but he dropped in our private chat here, and he's like, it's really Bitcoin versus slavery, and I'm not going to be a slave. Like that's what it's all about. Anyways, I'm gonna pass it to Evan. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say on it either, except for what you just said. Like at some point, I realized it really is Bitcoin versus slavery, and the financial system. To me, I don't look at it as a political problem. I look at it as a systemic problem, and the financial system and the political system are dependent on the fiat dollar because there is nothing backing it. It has to keep printing. Every fiat currency has to keep printing. And if they print too hot, then they have tons of inflation and then they lose people and society starts to fall apart. So to me, I see CBDC as this next thing that they're trying to use which is like financial repression, which a lot of people in Bitcoin talk about too, to try and control the flow of money and control people's behaviors so that maybe they don't talk about the inflation if inflation is running hot, because that'll ding their score. And that's what we have to remember here is who's making these rules. These rules aren't, the 10 commandments coming down and being written into a system. They're made by humans, and those humans are within a system that is designed to fall apart. So the rules are not going to be always good things. You might look at some of those things and be like, oh, well, we want less people to drunk drive, so we should have people lose credit score for drunk driving. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. But the rest of those rules and the system built around it means those rules are going to hide tons of horrible rules that will destroy people and destroy society and end up in slavery, because it has to. The fiat dollar has to, the fiat currencies, they have to go down in value. They have to print more. And this is just another way to try and plug a hole in the boat, but it's going down.
Amen to that. Amen to that. All right, everybody, before we move on to the culture.
Wait, Nico, I do want to acknowledge something in the chat right now. Apparently the YouTube chat comments aren't coming to Restream anymore. So I don't know what's going on, but yeah, that just happened. So we'll have to figure out what to do with the meme review. Anyways, go, Nico.
Anyways, I do want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor. And of course, we're running a little bit late, Opti. Let's push the meme review till Monday.
They're going to throw tomatoes.
It's okay. It's an interesting episode. I want Monday to be untainted in my opinion. Anyways.
Wait, then why add the meme review? Anyways, keep going.
Guys, check out the Orange Pill app. It is the Bitcoin social layer. Join the 10,485 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. Find local Bitcoiners and merchants, events and merchants near you. Has a very clever filtration system, so you'll only find local Bitcoiners on the app, and it has a very cool geographical feature. So if you move to a new city, you're traveling, you could find Bitcoiners by using the Orange Pill app as a resource. It's one of the best ways to DM me directly. I don't really check Twitter DMs, but if you want to reach me quickly, you could send me a message on the Orange Pill app. So download it today. Check the link in the video description or scan the QR code on your screen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the culture. Lots to talk about.
The Daily Culture.
All right, everybody. I want to give an extremely special shout out to our sponsor, KABOOMRACKS. It's the most trusted place to buy, sell, and host mining equipment. You could scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. That will take you directly to their Telegram marketplace. You can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing their products easy and transparent. You could also sell your mining equipment with them, access their vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your mining equipment with KABOOMRACKS. Scan the QR code and it will take you directly to their special sale that's going on right now. They're offering instant hosting for an S19K Pro 120 terahashes. Your hash rate goes online after your payment is confirmed. You own the miner. This is not a hash rate contract. So if you want to start mining instantly, instant hosting, check out the special deal. You can find that in the QR code or in the link down in the podcast/video description. Opti?
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Evan, I got your website here, but let's just let's go back for the people that aren't familiar with what you're working on, and for the new people that entered the show late. What is Rite of Passage? And then we'll get into the philosophy of it and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So actually, before we get into Rite of Passage, I want to get into the origin of it. So I did a tour across the US on a motorcycle in 2022, and I went to 30 Bitcoin meetups and rode like 12,000 miles across the US, mostly on state highways. And that taught me a very important lessons. One is that Bitcoiners get along. Like, people who call themselves Bitcoiners and really understand what that means and are out of the shitcoin orbit, they understand each other on a deeper level. And even though they might label each other differently on top of that, like Democrat, Republican, lawyer, construction worker, they get along really well. So I noticed that on the tour. And I also noticed that there's a really strong growth mindset among Bitcoiners that's lacking everywhere else. That Bitcoiners are very pragmatic about the future, and they want to build and grow And a lot of them are starved for connection with other Bitcoiners and for projects to work on, to build. And so I came up with this idea of, why don't we take to me, the ultimate freedom machine, a motorcycle, put a bunch of Bitcoiners on motorcycles and go for a ride. And so I did the first rite of passage last year in Thailand with 6 people. Texas Slim came out, the creator of the SAT symbol came out, and a couple other great Bitcoiners. And we just did a ride around Thailand. It was about a week. And I showed them basically places and people and experiences that were formative in my journey and coming to Thailand, and things that I discovered and the ways that it changed me as a person and helped me grow. I came here as a 9-to-5 slave, and now I'm running this motorcycle tour company and doing all these interesting things that I never thought I was going to be doing 2 years ago. And being here was a massive part of that, and going through the process of leaving the US, coming here. I knew nobody. I didn't have a place to stay when I first got here, and I built everything from the ground up. And all the learnings of that, and all the crazy things that I discovered along the way, especially riding a motorcycle, I wanted to package all of that up into 8 days and try to show it to people. So I did that one last year, and now we're doing another one this year. I'm also playing with a format in the US that traces some of the route I did on the Bitcoin tour in 2022 in the Midwest, which really surprised me. I grew up in the Midwest, never thought I would be excited to return to it. And when I came to the Midwest, I realized there is a ton of energy there, and it's all around Bitcoin and Bitcoin meetups. There's so much optimism, there's so much growth, and it's really a place that I think most people in the global community doesn't pay much attention to, but there's so much happening in the Midwest. So we're going to do another tour that goes through the Midwest, goes to a lot of farm stays, regenerative ranches, Bitcoin meetups, mining farms, that kind of thing. And then I have a third format in Thailand that is like an entrepreneurship ride, where we work on businesses while we're riding. It's like half business, half adventure. So yeah, I'm just playing with riding around on motorcycles, meeting up with Bitcoiners, and trying to have great adventures together. Because I think this is what's going to bond Bitcoiners and help us get out of fiat and onto a Bitcoin standard.
Love it, love it. And I want to expand on that, because I was asking you before the show that we wanted to talk about what you're working on. And you like very clearly were like, this isn't about just riding on a motorcycle. Like, this isn't just about travel. It's about what you've learned throughout that process. So maybe, add a little more for the context for the people out there. Like, what have you learned by being on a motorcycle with 2-ton death traps around you? And how has that changed you as a person? Was the mullet there before you took the motorcycle ride?
So the mullet I grew during the 2022
Perfect
trip, actually. Yeah. It grew out of that. It grew out of like, I want to be unemployable now. I want to do whatever the fuck I want, and having mullet is part of that. But yeah, the vision of the rite of passage, the reason that it's motorcycles is a very specific reason. I started with motorcycles. I started with Bitcoiners and doing motorcycles and Bitcoiners together, because to me, there's big parallels between the motorcycle and Bitcoin. Both give you an intense amount of freedom. So with Bitcoin, no one can stop you, right? You can walk across borders with $1 billion in your head. And that's an incredible ability that we've never had. Riding a motorcycle, you are in the environment, and it's the iron horse for a reason. We have horses, but the motorcycle was a leap ahead of that. Now you are in the environment, and you can fly faster than 100 miles an hour. And that feeling, that rush, that adrenaline, the focus that's created from putting your body in that situation is like nothing else I've ever experienced in my life. So there's the freedom aspect, but that freedom has a cost. It comes with massive amount of responsibility. And right, we know this with Bitcoin. If you don't know how to take care of that and store it properly, you're not doing your research and really understanding how to use it and store it and watch over it and protect it for the next generation, you're very quickly going to lose it. If you trust someone else to do it, you're going to lose it. Same with a motorcycle. You have to really know how to handle the bike, because if you don't know, you very quickly get into deep water with it and hurt yourself really badly. And that's why I picked motorcycles, because it has this heavy feeling of responsibility, but also this incredible freedom and exhilaration that you get from riding a motorcycle. But I don't think it has to stop there. To me, the rite of passage is more about creating opportunities and adventures that, one, bond people through those adventures, through challenging themselves, through the different perspectives that travel gives you, and also for creating this, what I consider sovereignty in the mind. The older I get, the more I think everything in life is mental. And if you truly can think through it, you can conquer it. But most people stop before they ever test the limit because they stop themselves. And through these rite of passages, I want to create moments where I break your brain, where the way that you saw the world or the way that you saw yourself fundamentally changed through some activity. So like last year we did Muay Thai, and a lot of older guys are doing Muay Thai, fighting with a Muay Thai fighter and training with him. Like, I want people to go through these experiences where they look back and they're like, I have no idea I would be doing that at any point in my life. You know, we crossed a border, for instance. Probably shouldn't say that on a stream, but we went into Myanmar because I wanted to show people that borders aren't real. Like, the borders that exist on a map are reinforced by your mental image of those borders and your respect for those borders. But there are people that live in that border area who literally do not respect those borders. They do not respect the states that have drawn those borders. So they just ignore them. And the states don't have enough of a incentive to crack down on that.
They don't have a money printer
around freely. And so it's things like that that I want to expose people to, because it changes the way that you see yourself, the way that you see the world, and helps people grow. So that's really what the rite of passage is about.
100%. Like, from outer space, you don't see borders, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a human construct, and you know, it's a creation of the nation state. Like, it's like, it's not real, right?
Yeah.
And you know, this is what Bitcoin in the separation of money and state so important, because all of that will go away. Literally, it will just go away. It like go poof, right? So yeah. But that's incredibly inspiring. It's so awesome too, Evan, because the farther away you are from countries that don't have strong money printers, you know, these artificial constructs, right? They just go away, and what you get in its place is humanity, like the actual human condition being lived by the majority of the population, and them just like not caring. It's like, yeah, there's a border on a map, but I got to cross the border, you know, to get the water because the river's on the other side, so I can bring it back to my village, and you know, my village is going to have water, right? So it's like, these are just artificial constructs created by, you know, the modern day nation state, which in essence is really just a system to extract wealth from the populace to fund wars. Like, I can't, you know, describe it in any other way, right? So man, that's absolutely inspiring. And you know, when I was at Swan, I was able to produce, or you know, be a part of a lot of the in the release of the video series that you did, Captain Sid. So highly suggest you guys watching that as well, because that kind of video documents a lot of your journeys. I think it was across America, I believe.
Yeah, there was a 3-part series on Swan's YouTube channel. I can drop the links later in the chat. But I started in Miami at Bitcoin 2022, and I ended up in San Francisco and took a very windy route to get there. It's about 3 months of riding almost every day on a motorcycle and going to a lot of meetups.
Very, very cool, man.
Love it. Okay. Well, first off, I do want to plug the dates for you, Evan. But before I do that, I do want to comment on, I didn't even connect the, like what you said about the motorcycle and sovereignty until you laid it out. And it was like, that's exactly what Bitcoin is. Like, there's no one here to protect you. And it really brought back the meme, you know, Bitcoin changes you, you don't change Bitcoin. And it's like, man, a perfect parallel here. But I'm gonna bring your website back up for the people out there. First and foremost, without you know, getting too long-winded here, and let me full screen you, because I just learned that I can only get one of these hats if I actually join the tour. And my question was going to be, Can anyone join this tour? And if people want to, when is the dates and what is it with the details?
Yeah. So if you scroll down here, you'll see there's 2 tours for Bitcoiners, and there's a third one that's for entrepreneurs, which is also for Bitcoiners. But I'm looking for people who are running their own business because that's important to the content that we're going to do on the trip. The Magical Thailand tour is November 4th through 13th. Starts and ends in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where I'm living. The American Heartland tour starts and ends in Chicago, and that's October 4th through 12th. And then the last one, the Mastermind one, that's more entrepreneurship focused. That one is also from Chiang Mai, and there's 3 different dates for it. It's like late November, early December, Monday through Friday kind of rides.
Love it, bro. Appreciate it. All right, man. Well, here, actually, last final message for the audience. It could be about the rite of passage. It could be about Bitcoin. It could be about life. It could be about philosophy. What's the last message you want to leave with the audience?
Oh boy, I would say travel, but don't be a tourist. A lot of people are tourists, and they go to places and they only see what they expected to see because they've planned it all out in a way that protects them from the risk of travel. And the risk of travel is you might see something or experience something that changes you. But that's what the beauty of travel is. And that's what I tried to deliver on the rite of passage. But you can do it yourself. You can do it without me. I did it without a rite of passage. Just go really travel somewhere. Go talk to a local person. Go off the beaten path. Get lost. Really, the world is not as dangerous as a lot of Americans think. A lot of people that came on my tour out here, they thought, oh, wow, someone told them I'm going to get shot in Thailand. I guarantee you are more likely to get shot in your grocery store anywhere in America than anywhere in this country. Guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Love it. Hey, Nico, I know you're not trying to do the meme review, but this show's already not going to get views. So let's just let it go 7 minutes longer.
We can't pull up the comments, brother.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's kind of the.
I guess you guys lucked out. Okay.
Yeah,
We'll figure it out on Monday.
Part of the reason why, I didn't want to do it. Anyways. So I do also want to give a shout out to the super chat, which we weren't able to pull up just because Restream seems to be a little bit buggy today. So Will M gave us $5. Take my fiat and sell it for Bitcoin. Well, appreciate it, Will M. Thank you so much for supporting the show. I do want to give a very special shout out to our guest, Evan. Evan, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, so I go by Captain Sid, SIDD with 2 Ds on Twitter. So you can find me there, or you go to rideofpassage.live. Awesome.
Well, I appreciate you joining us on this interesting episode. We usually don't do this type of stuff, but yeah, it was an interesting one.
Now Nico, our cover's completely blown, so we're going even harder in the paint.
No. we're gonna tone it back on Monday, and be again, guys, our mission, our purpose here at Simply Bitcoin is separation of money and state, and that's what we wholeheartedly believe that it's going to make the world a better place. Fix the money, fix the world. That's what we are about. But unfortunately, during this rocky transitionary period, it's just things are heating up. But we'll get back to the optimism and the hope and the stuff that you guys enjoy and you guys enjoy tuning into. We'll get back to that type of content.
Wait,
on
Nico,
Monday.
one last message. Everyone in the chat is saying that we are purposely rug pulling the comments. It's literally just not working. Like, the chat is the best part. The troll box is the best part of the show. Like, we love it. Give me all your hate, and we turn it into positive orange love here. Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
What we'll do is we'll shorten the news on Monday. Then we'll extend the meme review, Elaine. So I see your comment. All right. But guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I know it was a little bit of a different one. We love you all. We appreciate you all. But
get out and vote Bitcoin.
Yeah, vote for Bitcoin. And whether that's RFK or Trump, doesn't matter.
No. Vote with your pocketbook. Stack Bitcoin. Vote Bitcoin.
Yeah, vote with that. Actually, that is the most important vote that you can make. Actually, I'll be honest with you. So the most important vote you can make is taking Bitcoin into self-custody After you bought it, you earned it, you mined it.
Wait,
Take that
Nico.
Bitcoin into self-custody, and that's the most important.
I
vote
got to
you can
cut
make.
you off. Cut you off because we did get one last super chat. Shouts out to Senor Gringo Poppy for the $5, and he goes, "This was the best episode. Thanks, guys.
Well, I
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
We'll
it.
see you
dude.
on Monday."
Thank you so much. And again, guys, we'll be back to the usual flow Monday. Love you all. I'm your host, Nico. This is my co-host, Opti, and is our guest for today, Evan, aka Captain Sid on Bitcoin Twitter. Love you all. Have an amazing weekend, everybody. And we'll be back Monday for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.